Fighters from all over the world are invited to compete in an exclusive closed-door tournament to decide which martial art is the best. Former Russian soldiers, Japanese martial artists, Brazilian bad boys, and American wrestlers, all fighting for tens of thousands of dollars and the amusement of Middle Eastern royalty. This isn't the plot of some 1970s kung fu movie. This is the story of how the world's biggest submission grappling tournament was created. The Abu Dhabi Combat Club was founded by Sheikh Tamim bin Al Zayed, a crown prince and son of the ruler of Abu Dhabi. The young sheikh had discovered Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the mid-1990s while studying in the United States of America. This was a pivotal era for martial arts. The UFC had been created in 1993 as a promotional tool for Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Originally conceived as a showcase for the family's martial arts, the UFC completely disrupted how martial arts were perceived. The myths of karate practitioners having to register their hands as deadly weapons were quickly dispelled as grappling was shown to be the most effective style in a fight with limited rules. The young prince had started training jiu-jitsu in San Diego, and upon returning to his homeland, decided to found a grappling tournament much like the UFC, a tournament which would put jiu-jitsu against wrestling, judo against Russian sambo, shoot fighting against sumo, style versus style, all to find out which was the superior grappling system. Much like in the UFC, Jiu-Jitsu quickly showed that its strategies and techniques were the best, and over the next 25 years, ADCC became known as the pinnacle of no-gi grappling competition. From semi-private gymnasiums in the Middle East to gigantic arenas in the USA, the ADCC World Championships, which is held every 2 years, visited many countries, with editions held in Europe, Asia, and South America. Nowadays, the ADCC is widely known in the grappling world, but it wasn't always this way. Many of their world championships were held with little attention. Some years, there were barely more than a few hundred spectators at the events. That all changed in 2019 when the ADCC was held in Anaheim, California. With around 4,000 people in attendance, it signaled the start of a new era for no-gi grappling. Since then, ADCC has continued to grow, and being crowned ADCC champion is considered one of the most important titles in the world of grappling. Recently, the ADCC European Trials were held in Poland, and the first batch of athletes to qualify for the 2026 World Championships was confirmed. In this episode of Unknown Pressures, Hywel and Matt will share some of their ADCC stories, discuss the ups and downs of ADCC over the years, and look ahead to the long-awaited return of ADCC to Europe in 2026.
I think there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about with the trials. Number one, we follow the European scene, and we're quite passionate about the European scene in general, because I still feel like there are some standout athletes, but in general, the European community, European scene doesn't get as much love, as much focus, as much media coverage, you name it, as the other big regions in the world, specifically USA, South America, and increasingly so Australia over the last couple of years as well. I love seeing European trials because it's always quite a diverse affair. You always get competitors from lots of different countries there, and the results reflect that. Like I said, 2 Poles, a Russian, an Australian, half British, and a Scotsman in the final who qualified. What do you make of the overall kind of spread of European talent like you might see at trials?
Let's not forget the Finns, because the women's, which category was it? I got a memory like a sieve. But basically, it was an all-Finnish final in the girls, and Santeri is Finnish, and he was in the finals with Pavel. So Finland is a monster nation as well.
It is. Yeah. No, all the countries are. But what do you make in general, though, of the kind of the spread of European talent that we see at events like this?
Yeah, and the level is really high. It's just kind of similar to what we were saying at CGI, where FloGrappling kind of monopolizes a lot of the news, and they're based in the US, so naturally they focus on US athletes. The Brazilians get, not only are they super talented and achieving a lot, but they're also Brazilian, and it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So, those two together, and they do win the most. Yeah. When you put it all together. So it's natural that those two get the most of the attention. But the Europeans are definitely doing well. I mean, Polaris is helping in that respect by highlighting European talent, I think. But yeah, I mean, last time I checked, I keep saying it, I'm pretty sure it's a fact. Poland has the most black belts in Europe, I believe.
Out of any European country, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's
and
hard
they're
to
just
quantify. I
tough
don't
as
think
well.
there's an official register of that. But the big three nations in Europe, in terms of the sheer quantity of jiu-jitsu black belts and number of people training, is Poland, France, and the UK. Nobody actually knows the exact numbers of practitioners or black belts in each of those countries, but we do know that those are the big three. I did hear an estimate, actually. I was talking to Neil Williams, aka Wagon, from he works with you in Polaris, and he's been a long time member of the UK BJJA, the UK Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Association. Recently stepped down, and he was telling me that they have done some estimates through using some various kind of data scraping and so on, that they estimate there's 100,000 jiu-jitsu practitioners in the UK, which is a lot, and there certainly are hundreds of black belts at this point. But then Poland, I mean, a good gauge is how many competitors come out for something like the Polish National Championships. And I don't know the current numbers, but I remember 5, 6, 7 years ago, people were telling me, oh no, they have like 1,000 competitors easily at the Polish National. And that's only Polish people are allowed to compete in it as well, which I find is interesting. So they obviously have a very thriving scene as well, right?
Yeah. We do a lot of work with the Leglock Camp boys, which is Mateus and Camille, and their camps are tough. Doesn't matter where they hold them, because they hold them all over the world, I guess. But the Polish camp sits above the others, as in terms of like the sheer level of toughness. You know, people that you know, but also people that you've never heard of. I mean, Dan in our office is Polish, and he went back for the last Polish camp, and he came back a broken man. And he's one of the toughest people I know. So they're tough.
I remember back in the day when jiu-jitsu was really still getting started in the UK, as kind of like, early to mid 2000s. And there was, around that time, there was a wave of Polish immigration, right? There was a lot of Poles coming over to work. And because, the Polish economic situation back then wasn't great. So, back then they had freedom of movement, and they were moving over to the UK, and they were working in all sorts of things, whether it was a bricklayer, plumber, or a butcher, you name it. And once in a while we would get a couple of Polish guys come into the gym, and they were just notorious. They were just notoriously tough. It didn't matter if they were white belt, blue belt, and they generally weren't much more than a blue belt back then. But anytime a Polish guy came into the gym, you're like, oh God, here we go. We're going to have to go to war with this guy to earn his respect,
Still
but,
the same.
But I'm a huge fan of how Polish jiu-jitsu has developed over the last couple of years, because they've retained obviously that toughness, but the technical level there is incredibly high.
And very, very refined technique. Yeah.
And it's probably best represented, I feel, in the no-gi scene through guys like you say, Szynski, Kamil Wilk, Pavel Jaworski, others. And of course, let's not forget Adam Wodzinski as well, the only European man to ever win a black belt world title. That's
one of the best guys ever in the gi. Yeah. And just basically a Polish product, although he goes to Checkmate HQ, but basically done all his training in Poland, right? As far as I know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's from white to black belt in Poland, and then only started traveling and sort of going around. Moved away much later in his career, but yeah, a huge fan of the European scene in general, and really always excited to kind of see the results that come through from the trials, because it's always a great. There's always some upsets and there's always some surprises, and I feel like it's always a good opportunity to discover some talent, because
there's always a giant Russian lurking in the background waiting to ruin your day.
That is definitely true, although not many of them actually make it out to compete. Not as many as they would like, because I believe that that Russians, well, of course, with the current situation, it's even more complicated, but they have to get a Schengen visa to enter the EU. So some of them have it, some of them don't, and many of the best competitors don't. So I've heard that it's tricky for them to make it over, and I feel like if it was open for them, the results would look a lot different. But
for sure.
lot of surprises, and always a good way of identifying some talent coming through, and not just the winners, of course. I'm talking about guys who make it through into the later rounds, because that tournament as well. If you're winning a division, you're generally winning 6 to 7 matches, right?
It's ridiculous, and to do it all in one day as well, I feel like it's just pure like masochism at this point. There's no reason whatsoever they can't turn that into a 2-day event.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It's not very fair, I feel. The US trials is held over 2 days, and the European and Asian trials are held on one. It's tough. But I wanted to ask you specifically about you Scramble sponsor tons of athletes all over the world, but you do sponsor a good number of Europeans. You had quite a few guys. They had some really good performances last weekend.
Yeah, it was really good. I was watching it as much as I could, as like, a grown man with a family on a Saturday can, but they did really well. I think Taza is going to be feeling the pain of that loss for quite a while, and just in general the whole day, because it really takes it out of these guys, and girls. That was a grueling day, and I'm pretty sure it was a fairly controversial decision for Taza.
I don't know, to be honest with you. I watched the match earlier in preparation for this podcast, and there wasn't that much significant action that happened. And when those ADCC decisions come down to it, they're looking at certain criteria, and especially a big part of it is who's initiating the action. I do feel that Taza was initiating more, but the truth is he just wasn't getting anywhere with it. Every time he'd shoot, he'd run into a brick wall. Every time he was sprawled on. His sweeps weren't working. He didn't even get close to any submission attacks. And then, the question that the judges will look at is, well, who's controlling the position and who's dominating more? And in that case, it certainly was Jabayev. He was definitely on top position, I think exclusively, and Taza wasn't able to shift him. So it's a close one. Taza's he's always the almost there kind of guy, right? He's right there, but there's always somebody who kind of just
the margins are razor thin, aren't they?
They really
at
are.
that level.
Santeri had a good run to make it through into the final as well. Lost on decision also.
Santeri is a beast. Yeah, he messaged me and said, "I'm not winning a decision against Pavel in Poland." But,
yeah.
No, it was a good. I actually gave my login to Dan from the office, because he was, I kind of watched all day, all the early rounds, all the next rounds, and then when it got to the finals, I let someone else watch it. But I will go back and watch them. But I know what happened.
There's one more guy actually I wanted to ask you about. He took third in the under 99. And another one of your sponsored athletes who I don't know a lot about. Yeah, Moritz Kollensberger. He is Austrian.
Yeah, and he spent a long time training with Dara O'Connell at East Coast in Ireland. And yeah, he's been wearing Scramble for ages, and just like grinding, just like training, competing all the time. I think he went there without, obviously he himself knows how good he is, but it wasn't like FloGrappling were writing articles about him or anything, and then just came out and had a mega performance. Yeah.
So that note, then, I kind of want to ask actually, it's a little bit about Scramble. You've done some really cool articles where you've talked about what it is that you're looking for from a sponsored athlete, how people can get sponsored, but maybe just share a little bit with it now, because we're talking about Scramble athletes, that for somebody who's looking to get sponsored by any jiu-jitsu brand, or maybe specifically by Scramble, what is it, number one, that you're looking for?
I mean, the basic advice is the same advice that I've always given, which is like, just genuinely be a fan of the brand, because if we get a message on Instagram and then we go and look at the profile and he's head to toe in another brand for the last 6 months or a year, it's like, well, you're actually not into Scramble at all, you're just trying your luck. That's a good place to start. But just compete all the time, have some thing about you that separates you from other people, because there's thousands of competitors out there. So people kind of need something to differentiate themselves. Yeah, I don't know, because I don't know how I feel about it myself, because it's it's just a strange landscape at the moment in general. The sport, like lots of things are changing. Yeah, it's a complicated one. We could probably do a whole episode on that.
Yeah, I think maybe we should. But
Yeah.
let me ask you one more thing, though, about the sponsorship. Do you review applications, and is that how you find people? Or do you actively recruit or pursue specific people who you would
It's
like
a
to
mix.
sponsor?
It's a mixture of both. Like we basically said at the moment, we don't want any new people because we've got a lot, and a lot of them are doing really well. And it's almost like I would rather put our resources into the people that are already representing us, and like look after them a bit more rather than keep adding new people. But then occasionally opportunities come up, or somebody will contact you that you were interested in before, or there's some other like serendipitous thing where it's a territory you wanted to get into or something like that. Then we might make a decision on the fly when we get a cold call or a cold email.
That's cool. We should definitely do a deep dive into sponsorships in a future episode. I think that people would like that.
Yeah.
You know what I didn't see much of at the European trials? And I didn't watch it all because it was a lot, but I watched a fair amount. I didn't see a lot of people rolling off the mats and continue fighting as much as I've seen in some other editions of ADCC, especially the ADCC Opens, but also just ADCC World Championships, ADCC trials in other regions. And I'm not sure how you feel about this, but I'm just going to go on record right now. I absolutely hate seeing guys fighting off the mat. I think it is the most retarded and ridiculous thing that people could be doing. The mats are there for a reason. The competition area is about safety. And if you are allowing people to fight off the mats, you're, number one, you're inviting injury. And number two, you're promoting an absolutely idiotic style of grappling that people have now decided is a somewhat more hardcore or extreme version of no-gi jiu-jitsu, and they're adopting it, and they're actively looking to attack people and take them off the mats as some kind of legitimate strategy. And for me, I freaking hate it. I really do. So
No, it's not
I don't know
smart.
how you feel about it, but that's my feeling on the matter.
It's dumb. I don't know how it happened. It was almost like I guess they just didn't think about it before, and then like the US trials were going crazy or something, and people were getting slammed off the mats left, right, and center, and it took off on Instagram, and then suddenly it was like, yeah, that's what we're all about. That's what we do, man. We slam guys' heads on concrete floors. It's like, yeah, it's just dumb. When we went to do the first quintet, the first thing I noticed was that their mats were massive, like absolutely huge. It was pretty hard to find the edges of those mats. And when we've done Polaris in venues that don't have the perfect kind of stage or mat arrangement, you really notice when there's a short stage or a short matted area. Like, you need as much mat as possible, and you need the people to be staying as close to the center as possible. Like, anything that's going off the mat is just super dumb and super dangerous. It'll be hilarious until someone literally cracks their head, or there was one bad one in Poland. I think it was a 66 kilo. Was it Nico versus I can't remember, but he basically picked him up and double legged him all the way across like 3 mats, and they ended up in the wall. And the dude, like, it hurt his back. He was like struggling to get back on the mat. And he ended up winning like in the last 30 seconds. So he probably back pain probably went away then. But yeah, it wasn't a good look.
I'm not a fan, but I understand when they allow the action to go off the mats a little bit if they're in a locked on submission, because it definitely is an answer to people fleeing the area if they're in a locked on submission and trying to escape that way. I don't particularly enjoy it, but I understand the reasoning behind that rule. But one thing I absolutely detest, and I think is, like you said, it's inviting serious injury, is when they allow people to wrestle off the mats.
Yeah,
That's just, I've seen clips of, there's a famous trip of ADCC trials where Cody Steele is, about 20 feet off the mats at some point, rolling around through, like taking out a merch booth and going through a bunch of people who are having to dive out of the way, and there's a suplex on the carpet, and it's just we'll just let him fight in the parking lot if that's the case. You don't need that. But I will say this, that I think it varies region by region. For example, I rarely see people like you just described. I rarely see actions like that take place at European trials, where I see it all the time in the American trials, and increasingly so I've started to see it at the Brazilian trials in the last year or so, since they've started hosting the Opens, especially in Brazil. I've started to see it there. I mean, I saw Taza finish a heel hook off the mats, but they're only about a meter off the mats. They weren't deep into the crowd. They weren't wrestling. There wasn't as much of that action. It's I really don't see the point. And I think this is the one of the best arguments for the CGI pit. And I know it's impossible for most tournaments to ever think about implementing a pit, and it's out of the reach of most pro events as well. But the one thing I will say about that is it's ironic that Karate Combat accidentally invented the absolute best arena for grappling.
Yeah, well, time will tell if it's the best, but it's definitely sorted that problem. Yeah. I did just want to say one thing about the trials. And I do agree with the general online sentiment that the girls that win should probably be given a ticket to the finals, because we had a girl, Jessica, from Finland, just battles all day long, career best performance, winning nothing. It's just not fair, because she's got to go and if she wants to do ADCC, she has to go and do the whole thing again in next February. And what if you,
Right.
You get sick, or you miss you make a mistake in the first round, or even you lose like a razor thin decision in the final? That's 2 full days of your life grappling to the death for nothing. So
That's a great point. It almost feels redundant to run the women's divisions at the trials if you're not going to give them a spot, right? But they save the European qualifier for the second trials, so for the women. Yeah, it seems a bit.
I understand. As a promoter, there's always, we get a lot of comments about what we do, and then we're thinking, oh, these guys don't know the full story. But I don't really see what more of a full story there could be. It's a trials. They've paid to enter the trials, and they've won them, so they should get the same reward as the guys, really.
So with the trials last weekend in Poland, I'm wondering if it gives us something of a taste for what to expect, because for the first time in a very long time, ADCC is not only being held outside of the United States. 3 editions in a row were held there, 2019, 2022 and 2024. But 2026 ADCC is going back on the road. It's coming back to Europe, and it's going to be held in Poland. Me personally, I'm quite excited about that fact. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, really excited. They couldn't have chosen a better place to do it, I think, than in Poland. It kind of felt like they were pulling locations out of a hat, in the old days, but Poland definitely makes sense. I hope that they retain some of the kind of improved production that Mo brought to the table, because I've been to, maybe same as you, I went to Nottingham, I went to Finland. Like, they were okay, but they weren't. Once things really started pumping in America, they were pretty spectacular. So I would like to see some of that remain, but I know that the crowd is going to be really good, and I know that in general it's going to be a good event. I'll definitely be there.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait. I'm quite excited about the fact it's coming back to Europe. I feel like ADCC's charm was always the fact that it was each edition was held in a different location, and I totally understand having kept it in the States for the last 3, because it was such a period of just massive growth that it definitely could have stalled, or you would have lost some of that momentum had you taken it out of the United States and gone elsewhere. So it made the absolute right call in keeping it there for 3 editions. But I will say this, that the last ADCC 2024, I feel like they not only maxed out what was potentially, they not only maxed out what is possible in the United States, but they also put themselves in a little bit of a difficult position.
Where do they go from there?
Exactly. They went to the T-Mobile Arena, which is huge, and it wasn't anywhere near full. And we could talk about the competition crosstown and CGI that same weekend, but I feel like it would have been impossible to fill anyway. The production was really good, and it was even better than the previous year, but very similar. But what ADCC were left with was that after that, what do you do? Well, you can't continue to grow because you've obviously shown that there is a ceiling there. And with the Las Vegas, the biggest stars in the sport, with the most production invested into the event, that was the maximum that they could possibly do.
Yeah.
If you were to go back to the Thomas and Mack Arena in Las Vegas, then they would probably get roasted for not maintaining the same level of quality of production, and
they
going
could
to a
still do
small
that.
arena.
Yeah.
They could have, but it would have been a little bit of a black mark on the brand, I feel.
Possibly.
And then the question is, of course, well, what do you do next? Where else could you go? The two options for the next ADCC were going to be either Brazil or Poland. It was down to those two. I think that there were probably
Japan as well, by the way.
Yeah, there were other locations considered, because it's very opaque and nobody really knows how ADCC selection process works. But there are various stakeholders who will put in a bid. To who, we don't know. How the decision is made, we don't know. But is generally there's some political goings on in the background, and somebody gets awarded it, and then that's how it goes to that location. And it got down to between Poland and Brazil. And there's a guy called Renato who also runs the ADCC Opens and the ADCC trials in Brazil. And he also runs the brand known as Browse Fight.
Okay.
And Renato's actually been doing a really good job in Brazil. Like the Opens that he's been running have proven to be really popular. They've been very well attended. The production on them is probably some of the best for open tournaments that you'll find in Brazil, outside of something like the IBJJF, in terms of the logistics of how they run an open tournament. But I know from experience, having lived there for many years and having been to many, many arenas in Brazil, big and small, that the biggest obstacle to running any large-scale event in Brazil is just that the arenas are dog shit, that they are terrible. And even some of the most modern arenas that they built for things like the Olympic Games in 2016 are already decrepit, dirty, and the facilities are really, really terrible. And some of them are still being used now for open jiu-jitsu tournaments in Rio. There's the Olympic Park, the former Olympic Park, and it's been converted. And there are various arenas which are used for local states and even international tournaments like the AJP Grand Slam. And I can tell you, man, those arenas suck. They're terrible. There's like just really bad facilities. Internet connection is usually absolute trash. There is very little in the way of concessions for spectators or anybody in attendance. No, that's another black mark against them. They usually, they will have AC, but you'll often, especially the Olympic Park, because it's built next to a swamp, you'll have clouds of mosquitoes coming into the arena as well. It's just, whatever event I've ever been to in Brazil, there's always been some calamitous technical issue as well. Like, I'm thinking off the top of my head, well, I was in an arena in Brazil and there was an electrical fire that broke out in the lighting above the mats.
Weirdly, that came up on my Google Memories. I don't know why. I must have screenshotted it when it happened. And I was looking at it yesterday, so I know exactly what you're talking about, because you put it on Instagram and it was one disaster after the other.
Yeah, that particular tournament was incredible. Yeah, some random people stole a bunch of our equipment. They stole a bunch of our laptops as well that were at mat side streaming the action. There was the electrical fire that took place in the arena, and there were all sparks coming out of this lighting directly above the bleachers. And the kind of the facility staff came in, and nobody called like the fire brigade or anything. They just basically said, just don't sit under the fire. And the people sat there just kind of like budged up like a couple of meters and just went, okay, and just carried on watching while this electricity was arcing and sparking up in the freaking rafters. Yeah, that was a good one. There was the time that somebody unplugged the entire the power connection for the entire arena, basically the tournament software, the laptops that ran the matches, the laptops that were streaming the action, the cameras. Somebody unplugged it to charge their phone. That was a good one. That was incredible. Yeah, like the tournament software went down for like 45 minutes as well. That was a funny one. So there's just it's just
that's
one
not a
misstep
Brazil
after
problem though. That's who did that?
a Brazilian.
Oh,
Yeah,
right, okay.
totally. Yeah, but would say my memory of the ADCC in Finland in 2017 was solid. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it didn't look special. There wasn't anything invested in production. It was just like the previous ADCCs in Nottingham or Barcelona, where it was just basically a bunch of mats in an empty arena with the people watching, and that was it, right? But it was good.
I don't hate it. Yeah, it's almost like they can drop back to a default mode, which is fill an arena, put some mats down, little like minimal lighting effects, and some music playing, and an announcer, and that's it.
You don't
Which I hope
need
they
the
don't
huge
do.
rig and the pyrotechnics and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is a tournament at the end of the day. It's not like a pro show. It's not an well, it is an invitational, but it's a tournament and there's multiple matches going on. It doesn't. There's almost like two phases, isn't there? There's the finals when everything kind of focuses in, and there's a little bit of production, and then the odd super fight as well. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe they really overcooked it in the last one. Then it just wasn't necessary to be that that kind of heavily produced. You know.
I agree with you. I've been to Olympic sports. I've been to Olympic judo and Olympic wrestling, and it's very much the same thing. There's a certain base level of production that goes into making the arena look pretty, but there isn't anything invested in making it any kind of show, because the show is the sport.
I really enjoyed the first. Is it not the first? The first of the modern era California one. I'm sure I saw you there. And so I wangled a press pass somehow. So I had my camera. I was on the side of the mat. And I really enjoyed that, because that was the first time that they really put a little bit extra into the production. They hadn't gone completely ham at that point. So it was like, we've got some cool screens. We've got, a good sound system. And for the finals, they dropped all the lights down. That was really good. For me, like, that's probably the correct level of production. Vegas was good. The first Vegas one was good. The year after that, or the event after that. But I don't think you need to go. And even that one was a little bit over-egged, you know.
It was. It doesn't need to be a Rammstein concert, right?
No, yeah, exactly. And it had all those
Which,
long
incidentally,
ceremonies.
is actually what they were trying to do. Because I know for the Seth Daniels, the producer of the ADCC events working for Mo, that he was actually, he hired, or was trying to hire Rammstein's pyrotechnic guy for those
Big
entrances
Rammstein guy.
I guess so, yeah. But in terms of the ADCC 2026 in Poland, I think that there's going to be a couple of really good things for it. I think, number one, the arena is actually really nice. It's a legit world-class modern arena. Number two, we already talked about the fact that the Polish Jiu-Jitsu community is huge. They're going to come out and support it, for sure. Number three, Poland is super cheap and accessible to access from anywhere in Europe. It's slap bang right there in the center of Europe. You can get there for $150 flight from pretty much anywhere in Europe very, very easily. It's easy to find good hotels. It's cheap in general to eat and drink. So you're going to have loads of people coming in from all over the world, I believe, to come to this event. And I got to say, I'm excited to see just the difference in feel and flavor for a European ADCC event as opposed to the last three, in America. I just feel like the personality of the event is going to be very different, right?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to visiting Poland, because I've never actually been there, but Dan,
me either.
Scramble Dan is always singing its praises to us. So
I'm probably not going to train when I'm there, though. After everything we just said.
Half my gym is Polish anyway, so I'm ready.
We've both been to quite a few ADCC events at this point. My first one, believe it or not, my first ADCC event was only actually in 2015. Your first ADCC was way back in 2011 when it was in the UK, right?
Shit. Yeah, I got one on you then.
I missed that one because I left the UK like 3-4 months before they had it. And I moved out of the UK to Brazil, and then they announced ADCC is going to be in the UK, and I was like, fuck, but I'd already moved, so.
Yeah, it was a good one. That was, I drove up to Nottingham in my little car from Bournemouth, which is like, two ends of the country, picked up Ollie Geddes, rest in peace.
Far. Come on, Nottingham is technically the Midlands.
Ooh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, could be further. Yeah, it still felt pretty far. But we were sort of freaking out because it was everywhere you look there was a superstar. It was like Ollie was telling me about the Hickson chair, which is like the kind of little camping chair that they put down that only Hickson's allowed to sit in. Apparently, all the ADCCs have one of them.
Was that your first time at like a major jiu-jitsu event with all the big stars and stuff? It was.
Yeah, it was really cool. I didn't know where to look. It was like Rafael Mendez, Marcelo Garcia. It was really cool.
2011 was a pretty good one. There was I think 2011 for me was the sort of the beginning of the modern era of ADCC, because there were some amazing things that did happen in the past before that, but it's that sort of pre-internet period where there's books and magazines and photos, but it's hard to find the video evidence of it. It's few and far between. You had Budo videos streaming and filming the ADCC from the UK, and that was a good one.
They definitely
lost some momentum.
Up the mats there. Sorry to interrupt you. The mats were tiny. Like,
oh yeah, weren't they like about like 8x8 or something
wide
like that?
No way.
Smaller.
They were tiny. I remember Fabricio Verdum and
Vinny
Magalhaes. Yeah, they were. Those are two very long human beings, and when they were on the floor, basically one guy's arm was hanging out of the mat and his leg was hanging out the other side, basically. Like, it was just tiny, and they were not secured. Like, it was so bad.
Jeez. On an ice hockey rink as well, so
actually,
underneath the covering was probably ice, right?
Yeah. The more I think about it, the more hilarious that event was. They had it was Pal Harris going mental, just breaking everyone's legs and like bear hugging people and slapping them on the back. Jeff Munson acting crazy. Was a good event. Yeah.
Marcelo versus Kron again. That was awesome. All of us, we all missed 2013 because the one in Beijing in China, nobody went to that one. By all accounts, there was a few dozen people in the arena, and it was basically just the fighters and their entourages. There was absolutely nobody there. Yeah. 2015 in Sao Paulo, Brazil, that was my first official ADCC World Championships. And that was cool because I'd been to the ADCC trials in Rio de Janeiro just a few months earlier, and that was my first ADCC rules event, full stop. And it was awesome. Like, there was some really good guys competing at that one. I remember Felipe Pena actually won that trials event, and then he went on to place in the absolute, I think it was, at the ADCC 2015. Phenomenal event, but again, going back to the dog shit arenas, oh my god, that one was a volleyball arena, and it was well attended for the size of the arena. It felt full, but the arena was small. There was maybe 2,500 people in there, maybe 2,000 people in there, but it was packed. And like any event in Brazil, it was super loud. It was good energy, but the arena was dirty and just tiny. And I remember that there was one bathroom. There was one bathroom for spectators, workers, athletes, everybody. And I remember I was in this huge line of probably about 20, 30 people. I was waiting to take a piss. And like two guys in front of me was Rodolfo Vieira in his rash guard, waiting to take a piss. And then like two guys behind me was like Cyborg in his rash guard, waiting to take a piss. Like, the division's going to get called up a little bit later. And then I get into the bathroom and there's one stall and it's overflowing and blocked. And then there's two urinals, and it's just, this is one of the reasons why I don't want to go back to a Brazilian arena.
They need to set the toilets up at the arena in Poland. I don't know, for old time's sake.
Please no. But then 2017 in Finland was a really good event, and I that was the first event that Flo ever streamed, and I feel like that was the one where the ADCC took off because everybody always respected ADCC.
Yeah,
but it wasn't really as big as it is now. Like, nobody really followed ADCC because you couldn't. There wasn't anything to follow, right? You couldn't watch the matches. The qualification process wasn't streamed. You didn't know who won. It was just every 2 years ADCC would come up and then it would disappear again.
You could, but it was more niche than ever. It was only the hardest of hardcore. Yeah, I think I used to watch it on Budo videos, but yeah, the trials were, you just read about it and see pictures. Oh, you were doing videos of, people like Felipe Pena when they were training. That would give people some insight into the level that these guys are at. But yeah, it was super niche still at that point, or it felt like it anyway.
Yeah. And I feel like 2017 was the moment when ADCC kind of entered sort of more of the sort of public consciousness of the grappling community, and people were a lot more attuned to the fact that, oh wait, this is the highest level no-gi grappling event in the world. They'd always known that, but now they were able to see it and follow it. And of course, 2017, breakout year for some major stars as well. JT Torres won his first title, Gordon Ryan won his first title, and Felipe Pena won the absolute against Gordon Ryan in the final. It was one of those momentous moments in grappling history.
Craig Jones breaking out.
Craig Jones's breakout performance. Yeah, it was just...
I remember that arena. It was a cool arena because it had like a restaurant and bar at one end where you could sit and eat and still see the mats. And we were sat there.
I had an absolutely delicious reindeer meat.
Yeah, I think we probably had the same thing. Yeah,
it was so good.
Reindeer meat and a couple of finished beers, and then hearing the whole crowd go bananas and figuring out that Craig Jones had just tapped. I think it was Murillo, wasn't it?
Wow, the flying triangle.
Yeah, and then a few minutes later, who else did he get?
Well, it was the other way around. He tapped Leandro first.
Oh, Leandro, yeah.
Choke, and then he tapped Murillo in the next round with the flying triangle.
Yeah, that was crazy.
It's funny. I remember a funny story behind the scenes of that ADCC. It was the day before they'd made the brackets, which they do in secret at ADCC. They get together a little committee and they draw their bracket on a number of criteria. They have a kind of a top seeds, but then they also just like, we want to make the best matches, and they did. And actually, two stories. Number one is that if you want to send any thanks for getting to see the Gordon Ryan versus Dillon Danis match at ADCC first round 2017, you can send it my way, because I was the person who managed to persuade Mo to make that match happen first round.
Really? But who were you campaigning for, Dillon or Gordon?
No, I wanted to see them fight first round. I didn't care who won, but I needed to see it happen, because if you remember a couple months earlier, Gordon almost got into a fight with Gary Tonin and Gordon at ADCC trials in the US. There was a big confrontation. There's a video of it on FloGrappling where Dillon is doing what Dillon has become famous for, right? It's just getting into a shoving match and shouting and stuff, but not anything really happens. And they were talking a lot about, Dillon versus Gordon, Dillon versus Gary, and they were talking, but it's obvious Dillon wasn't going to do anything about it. Well, Dillon gets invited to ADCC. Gordon and Gary are both there. Gordon and Dillon are in the same division. And I said to Mo, I was like, listen, Mo, you have to make this match first round, because if you don't, and they don't like face off later in the bracket, that match will never happen. And we'll never be able to say that we saw Gordon Ryan versus Dillon Danis. And I think Mo went, okay. Later that afternoon, the bracket gets handwritten on a piece of paper and gets stuck to the window in the inside of the hotel lobby where all the fighters are staying. And right there, 88 kilograms, first round, Gordon versus Dillon. So
it was such a good match
for that one.
Yeah, well done.
It was a great match. It was a phenomenal match. It was actually, Dillon did really well for himself. But
probably gave him the best match of that tournament, didn't he?
Apart from Felipe Pena, yeah, he did. Felipe was able to beat Gordon, but apart from that, 100%. Like Dillon proved that he had world-class grappling in that match at that time. So. It was good. The other story about the brackets that I was going to get into before I got sidetracked was about Craig Jones and Leandro Lo, because the brackets get revealed, they get pasted, or like I said, get stuck to the to the window, and everybody's crowding in. And I've known Leandro for a few years at this point, and we'd stood next to each other looking at the brackets, and it says first round, Leandro Lo, Craig Jones. And he asked me, he's like, do you know this guy? And I'm like, not really, kind of. Like I'd heard his name, that's all. I knew that Craig was Australian. I think that he had some crazy story about some weird trials in Kazakhstan or something like that to win. I'm not sure if it was Kazakhstan or Korea. It was in Asian trials, but he wasn't the Craig Jones then that he is now, right? Yeah. Nobody knew who this guy was. And Leandro was like, it'll be an easy first round. And just walked off like, I don't give a fuck. Yeah. Well, of course, history shows a very different story.
I mean, one of the best Brazilians to ever do it, reading the name of some random Aussie, must have just been like, whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's funny as well, because that was actually the first time I'd ever met Craig. Craig and Lachlan were there together. I met them both for the first time in Finland that weekend. Yeah. And after day one, Craig had tapped out Leandro Murillo. And I went up to Craig and I did an interview with him. He was kind of hanging out, sort of, just sort of in the area where all the athletes sort of hang out. And I put the camera in his face and I tried talking to him, and he gave one of the worst interviews you can ever imagine. Shy, could barely speak in front of the camera, didn't really know what to do, what to say.
No way, are we talking about the same guy?
No, like the transition from that Craig that existed way back then to the Craig now, the sort of the media personality superstar, incredible to see that evolution. But I do also remember that I was walking, so there was like a couple hundred meters, it was like a 10-minute walk or something from the arena to the hotel. And I was walking with the guys from Flo and through that little sleepy suburb of wherever we were staying in Helsinki.
Espoo, yeah.
Espoo, that's right. It's like a neighboring town to Helsinki. Very quiet, right? It was eerie, very quiet there.
Yeah.
But
that's in general.
Is it? Well, we're walking down the street and we cross paths with Craig and Lachlan. They're going in the opposite direction. And I remember just us sort of stopping and saying, fucking hell, like Craig fucking Jones, like after that first day when he tapped out the two guys, we were both like, wow, Craig fucking Jones. And he was just laughing. He's like, I don't fucking know.
But he's always been the same sort of guy, but somehow he parlayed that into like supreme confidence. But he's still the same, like self-deprecating, sort of slightly bashful. He's you can see signs of it.
Yeah, Craig is definitely very self-deprecating, and I think that's an Aussie thing in general, right? They mercilessly make fun of each other, and they also make fun of themselves, and he is actually a lot more introverted and shy than people realize, and you'd never imagine from that public-facing persona, but naturally he's a pretty quiet dude, and that definitely hasn't changed as much as people think.
No, we probably shouldn't get too much into it, but I feel like he's probably struggling a bit with all the attention. I think he on the one hand he probably wanted it, and on the other hand he's probably like sick to death of it. So
well, after the last event I can imagine he'll be taking some time to recharge, but that's well earned. While we're on the topic of the ADCC in Finland, do you want to tell your Finland story?
I'll just go as far as to say I had a few drinkies at the after party.
I didn't go. I made the point of not going because I knew it was going to be a shit show and B, going to be a sausage fest. And I was like, I'm not going. So
I wasn't going to go, and I was peer pressured into going. So I smashed a 6-pack of beer at like fucking 8 p.m. on a Sunday night in order to prepare. And it was really fun. It was very surreal. It was in like a pretty nice little bar. In a skyscraper, in a very tall building. It wasn't quite a skyscraper.
Like a rooftop bar or something, right?
Yeah. There was some outside areas, and they were running like gambling, like fake gambling things, and I just really quickly got really drunk and just made not too much of an ass of myself, but there were some fun interactions. Let's say that. But I never get tired of those sort of parties because I saw Gordon and Dylan, unsuccessfully attempting to squash the beef at the bar, nearly like killing each other again. My mate Campo was putting his name into Renzo Gracie's phone. What else was going on? Leandro Lowe was doing that like weird Cossack dancing in the middle of the middle of the dance floor, and it was completely bonkers. Yeah, Tom DeBlas was there. Said it. Yeah. Anyway.
So you're not sharing the story then? We're going to have to wait until the book comes out.
You have to wait for the book. Yeah, you can read it all in there.
Well, maybe I'll tease it out of you in future episodes. So
maybe.
We'll do a drunk episode and then I'll get you to spill the beans. So ADCC in general, man, I've had such great experiences, and the last three were no exception. ADCC 2019 was a lot of fun. Like you said, Anaheim, California, that was a real turning point as well. I think that was the moment when we realized that, oh shit, this can be big. right? ADCC 2022 was a lot of fun. That was a different event for me because for once I wasn't actually working at an ADCC. And I'd left Flo just a couple of weeks before, but Mo very generously said, "Oh no, like you're more than welcome to come. Like you're my guest." So he hooked me up with the VIP pass, and I was sat in this kind of like I was sat about 3-4 rows from the front, because if you're sat mat level at a tournament, you can't see shit, right?
Yeah, very true.
Like, yeah, the best vantage point is about 3 or 4 rows back from the very front, so that you're able to kind of see over the heads of everybody walking by, and then you can see all 3 mats at the same time. And I had a great weekend because there were so many people. I was like, at one point I was sat next to like Mackenzie Dern, Henry Cejudo, and just loads of people like Henzo, Eddie Bravo. It was just loads of people coming in and out the whole time. There's lots of industry people there as well. And like, quite interestingly, for about half of the very first day, I ended up sitting next to Philip Rowe, aka Philly Fresh, the UFC fighter, right?
Yeah.
And like, that guy is legit hilarious. Like, he's just a big character, big personality. Doesn't stop talking shit. He's very, very funny. And I'd met him before because he'd competed on Who's Number One in the past.
Yeah.
And he and I kind of just got talking and stuff, and it almost turned into like an alternative commentary channel. Like, we should have had microphones for that event, because it just would have been the most hilarious commentary of ADCC. But my best and most favorite moment from that whole event was AJ Agazarm went out first round against Jeremy Skinner in the
I remember. Yeah, we were sponsoring Jeremy at the time, so we were we were punching the air.
Well, number one, Jeremy's really good at jiu-jitsu, and just putting it out there. Got to train with him in Las Vegas last week as well. He's very, very good grappler and great teacher as well. Shout out Jeremy Skinner. But number two, he won trials and he then fought AJ. But the match with AJ ended rather controversially, because AJ thought that he should have been awarded 2 points for a reversal, which he didn't get, and then he lost the match. And he did the AJ thing of refusing to leave the mat, and he was protesting, and he was there in the center of the mat for God knows how long. I'm surprised he didn't do this thing of like start taking his shorts off and stuff to protest, right? When he finally left and people were booing him and stuff, all the fighters were entering and exiting, and they were walking past our VIP section. And as he's walking past, Philip Rowe, I don't remember exactly what he said, but he heckled AJ. He said some shit, kind of, AJ fucking suck, or whatever. And AJ stopped, and he spun around, and he's like, who said that? Who said that? And he's looking around to try and find who it was in the VIP section who shit talked him. And Philip Rowe just stood up, and it was like, it was me. And AJ, I have never seen somebody tuck their tail and turn around and get out of there as quickly as they could. The moment that he saw it was Phil, he just went,
yeah, sorry about that.
Straight out. So
he's a character. He's a character.
But that was a fun one. And then the last ADCC was that was good as well. I got to watch that one as a VIP too, rather than work it, because it was the same weekend as CJI. But you were there for 2019, 2022, and 2024. You were there for all of them, right?
They're all blurring into one. 2019 was California. That was good. Yes. 2022 was Thomas and Mack, Vegas. Yes. Yeah, and then I've been to a good chunk of them.
What's your experience like at ADCCs? Like, are you working those events, or are they like a kind of a working holiday, or are you hanging out with athletes, industry people, friends? What are you doing?
It's a bit of everything, really, but I genuinely enjoy just being a spectator, because running Polaris running an event is very stressful. But just sitting and watching someone else do all the work and just watching jiu-jitsu is really enjoyable. But it's really good for networking and seeing what people are doing and what kind of developments the show has made. 2022 was probably kind of peak, I guess. Maybe 2019. 2022, they over-egged a few things, didn't they? They had Lenny Hart, the Screaming Pride lady, who's fucking phenomenal, but they massively overused her.
And they brought out Bruce Buffer as well, so you had like two
Bruce
announcers.
Buffer, yeah, two legendary announcers, and then like that really long kind of ceremony thing they did. I can't remember.
Yeah, and then 2024, that was the one where I only came in for the second day because I was at CJI across town for day one, but I came in for day two to check it out. And then we got to hang out the day after, the Monday before we both flew home. We got to hang out. You took me to
the best coffee I've ever had in Vegas. It was actually really, really good coffee. Yeah.
Shout out that place. You know actually who also discovered that place last week? Oh, did he also? I was going to say this guy right here, Chris Wojcik.
Oh, really? Are you sending it from there or what?
No. He just posted. He's like, he has like a really cool email newsletter.
Yeah.
The Grappler's Diary. Shout out Chris. And he happened to post that he went to this really, really cool coffee spot near Fremont in Old Town, Las Vegas, called the Mothership, in like an old motel or something. And I was like, I know exactly what you're talking about. I took Matt from Scramble there, and we had great coffee. So
we did quite a lot. We went from coffee to ice cream to beer in Fremont Street, didn't we? It was quite a...
We did. It was quite good.
I think I even picked up an oxygen canister for no reason and started huffing that. Didn't I buy one of those in the convenience store? Vegas things, you know.
I'm not sad that we don't have to go back. Like I enjoy going to Las Vegas for events. Like some people hate it. I don't. For me, Las Vegas is just work. I don't go to the Strip and I don't gamble. I just enjoy it for what it is. Good food, hang out with my friends, and, beer or two. But I am looking forward to a new destination. And I've never been to Poland, and I've heard nothing but good things. So I'm actually really excited for the next one.
I got a question for you. Do you think they will make any changes to the price structure? Because I know like they probably didn't want to do it last time because it would have looked like a knee-jerk reaction to what CGI were doing, but they've had a couple of years to think about it now, or they will have had that. What do you think?
Will they? I don't know, but I think they should.
Yeah,
I really think they should. I mean, the prize money hasn't changed for ADCC since its inception in 1998, which is nearly 30 years. That is absolutely insane. $10,000 to win your division. Now, in today's economy, $10,000 is still a substantial amount of money, but there are super fight shows, there are invitational tournaments, there are all kinds of events in Jiu-Jitsu that are paying substantially more money than that. And I'm not even referring to the $1 million from CJI. I'm just talking about there are relatively small invitationals that have $20, $30, $50, $100,000 prize brackets. So there's no reason that ADCC, with the resources that they have, that they couldn't raise the prize funds for the athletes. And I think it's long overdue.
Yeah, we've given away multiple $20,000, $30,000 prizes and paid flights, accommodation, and show fees. So I think the athletes probably deserve, especially considering how long and grueling the process is of winning ADCC.
100%.
Yeah, I kind of have a theory about that. I think one reason, aside from the fact that they've been around forever, one reason why there's so much prestige is because you really have to be something special to win not only a grueling trial, but then a year later win a grueling tournament. Yeah. That is so unbelievably difficult to be on top form at all those times.
The months over such a period of time that you need for it, everything. Yeah, the reward does not reflect the efforts required to win. That is 100% the fact. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm a bit of a masochist in that I just turn up and fucking, jiu-jitsu is like physical pain, but mentally, rewarding. And I wonder if all jiu-jitsu people have a kind of masochistic tendencies, which is why they sign up to these. I mean, fly yourself to some random gym in the middle of Europe and pay to compete and fight for 6 hours, fight for a 12-hour day, and then do it all again a year later. It's fucking crazy.
It certainly is, but I think that in today's professional era, it just doesn't fly.
No,
you've got guys who are regularly compete. It's their full-time job. They're not doing anything else. They are sponsored. They are training full-time. They're competing regularly. They're winning, good amounts of money. And I just don't think that in in this current era that the ADCC price structure is either fair or appropriate. And I think that that is the one thing that they definitely should change for 2026. I'm not sure if they will, but I would certainly like to see it happen.
Yeah, same. Yeah, can't tell other promotions really what to do, but it would make sense.
Yeah, it is. It is certainly a question because nobody really knows, for example, where the ADCC funding comes from. And the kind of the stories that I've heard is that the Sheikh has not been involved. Sheikh Tanun bin Al Zayed, the founder of ADCC, he has not been involved in ADCC for many, many years. I mean, the guy is literally, he is like a right-hand man to his elder brother, who is the president of the UAE. He is the foreign minister or defense minister, I forget which one it is, but he is a very, very high-level government minister and also diplomat. And that guy is not focused on some biennial grappling tournament. It's just a passion product. Apparently he checks in and he does watch it, which is I think is actually quite interesting, but he's got other things on his mind. Now, I've heard that the people that he has tasked with managing the event, they're basically given a budget and now you go off and you produce the show, and that's how much you have. But we all know how much money the Emiratis have. Those guys have vast amounts of money. Their sovereign wealth fund is one of the biggest in the world, and it's not like they couldn't afford an extra couple $100,000 in prize money for the athletes. On top of also, I think, improving production across the board, because allowing the local or the regional promoters and putting all the onus on them to handle production and then having to recoup costs through things like ticket sales and selling streaming rights, and whether they're doing other things as well, like merchant apparel at the events, I don't know. But, you know, those are not necessarily substantial sources of income to run a massive international level event like that. And maybe you can speak to more about something like that, because you know how much it actually takes to run an international event, right?
Yeah, I mean, I understand. It's almost like a licensing model, really, which I understand. And then it's in the promoter's best interest to sell as many tickets as possible and as much merch as possible, and, you know, sort out the streaming rights and everything. But if you consider, you know, at the core, at its inception, the Sheikh and his guys must have sat down and said, right, this is the prize pool, and then they just didn't update that for 20 years. So I mean, it must be a strange experience dealing with, you know, billionaires from the Middle East with more money than you can kind of ever possibly spend. But surely at some point somebody could say, guys, we need another 500,000, you know.
Well, I know from experience, having worked in the Middle East quite a lot with various companies, that they certainly have lots of money, but they don't like spending it very much. And they certainly don't like if they think that people are going to them with the assumption of, oh, those guys have got all the money in the world. I'll just ask them for as much
that's what
as
I
can.
mean. It's probably a very nuanced discussion, even though I guess athletes and commenters on Instagram probably think you can just go, oh mate, fucking send over another 1 million, please. Yeah. It's definitely not like that.
Maybe not, but I do feel that there's got to be a case for making a request for just increasing the operational budget.
Yeah, whoever's doing all the communications with them, just say times have changed in 20 years.
It really has, yeah. And it has. It's been now 28 years of ADCC, which is a lot of history and seems to have gone by quite quickly. But I was going through some old ADCC videos earlier today. I was looking for some clips, and I was looking at footage from 98, 99, 2000, 2001, and it just looks like an entirely different era. It's not even like it resembles anything like the grappling scene that we know now. I mean, if I could use a sort of an analogy from another sport, it's like watching boxing from the 1940s of just two guys stood in the middle of the ring slugging it out, compared to watching like Floyd Mayweather. You know, the sort of the spectacle and the showmanship and the production. And I just think back to those sort of like the plain white canvas and the ropes and just the light. You just don't see anything except two guys in the middle of the mat. And then the sort of the glitz and glamour of the modern era. That's what it looks like, comparing this early ADCC, which is held in like a semi-private gymnasium, the actual Abu Dhabi Combat Club, ADCC.
Yeah.
The club still exists. It's a private members club, and I think that they have they still have the sports hall. I don't think it's used for anything with jiu-jitsu or grappling nowadays, but the sports hall still exists. But there's like an actual, it's almost like a country club where they have maybe some horse riding and some other activities. Yeah. But the gymnasium is really small. There's very few people inside it, and there's just empty mats with no logos and just a couple of guys grappling, and the grappling doesn't look that special either. But there's a certain charm and appeal to watching the old grappling stuff, because like you've got one guy in wrestling boots and another guy in a baggy t-shirt, and I sent you a clip earlier of the Japanese guy in toe socks.
Yes, yeah. Well, they still, I think, technically don't have a huge amount of rules about uniform, right? I think somebody was
you
saying
could wear a gi if you wanted.
Yeah, there you go. You could turn up in a gi, just no one does. Yeah. I remember a Japanese guy. He went in a head-to-toe like silver suit in Nottingham. It was like
yes, that's right. 2011. That was the last time we saw any kind of crazy outfit at an ADCC World Championship. I don't remember the guy's name, but it was like a bodysuit just up to his neck, basically, right?
I felt like it went over his head. He literally just had like a little. This part was open.
I think he might have taken the hood off for the match, but
maybe I'm imagining it. Yeah,
and I remember. Was there a guy, another Japanese guy in like a flesh-colored one as well, or am I imagining that?
That was just his flesh.
Oh, you mean like so? Yeah. No. But there was the old ADCCs is wild, because, like I said, you've got a guy in a singlet, you've got a guy in wrestling boots. There were a few people that competed in gis, like way back in the very very early ones. And then actually a few years later, there was an interesting match where Saulo Ribeiro actually decided to wear a gi jacket to fight against Jeff Monson, because he wanted the friction of trying to hold Jeff Monson in the guard. I thought that was quite curious. But it's literally like watching another era, and for many of us that's living memory. So it's the evolution has been pretty astounding.
I mean, if you got them via nefarious means, and don't answer, but where are they all housed?
They're all on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Because I guess it was independent for a bit, and then Budo Videos did it for a bit, and then Flo bought some rights. I know Fight Pass randomly has like really old ADCCs, or it did the last time I checked.
Yeah, and actually I think the reason is because the rights holder was a guy called Jeff Osborne, who was old school MMA, maybe fighter, analyst, commentator, coach. Certainly involved for a long time. He's a promoter as well. He had Hook and Shoot in the US many years ago, and I think he even ran ADCC trials in the US way back in like the early 2000s. And he had the video rights for ADCC, I think like 99, 2000, 2001, 2003, like way back in the early days. And that's why they ended up finding their way for a time. You could actually watch ADCC like from 99, 2000. You could find it on Amazon Prime, which was really wild.
Wow.
It did make its way into Fight Pass. But I think that they have, because it seems to be affiliated with them, but there seems to be a YouTube channel where there's lots of like short clips that show classic matches of like Rico Rodriguez flying arm barring some random Russian guy, and then some Japanese shoot fighter in wrestling boots going up against a jiu-jitsu black belt. It's some
I
fun
remember
stuff for sure.
The Japanese used to send a pretty decent contingent over, didn't they? It was like Kawuno and Kikuta. Kikuta won it, didn't he?
He did. He was the technically not a jiu-jitsu guy, right?
Probably a judo background, but a grappler.
But he was, I think, a judo stroke shoot fighting, shoot wrestling, submission wrestling kind of Japanese MMA, but not actually a Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Like there was nothing to do with jiu-jitsu at the time. So
yeah, a lot of those guys were not Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Yeah,
you're right. There were a lot of MMA fighters, of MMA fighters back in those days as well. And I was reminded of that looking at these clips, because there's Tito Ortiz, Matt Hughes, George St. Pierre.
Yeah. I mean, I thought on the topic of the Japanese guys, Kao Luna was part of a gym called Wajutsu, I think, and Wa literally means Japanese. So it's Japanese technique. Like, they've been grappling for a long ass time. They didn't need to call it Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because,
well, where
they
did
had
it
it
come from,
already.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember Genki Sudo competed as well
Yeah, what a
in
guy.
early ADCCs. He had a match against Vitor Belfort, and that's the first time I ever saw a wrestling switch in action, which is really curious because Vitor Belfort's huge. Genki,
Yeah.
I think, was in the under 77, and Vita picked up a single leg and had his head on the outside, and Genki was just so smooth and so fast back
I
then.
mean, he
Right?
was an actual wrestler, from high
He
school.
was. He wrestled, yeah, but he stuck that switch in and took the back of Vita Belfort. I was like, wow, that Genki did a lot of mind blowing stuff back in the day, and that was just one of many incidences where I was just in love with his technique. And I don't know about you, because you have such a strong connection, of course, to Japan and the Japanese scene, but Genki Sudo was something else, right?
Yeah. You must watch that video hundreds of times. What was it, West Side Jiu-Jitsu or something, where Genki Sudo just turned up and styled on everyone, one after the other. Like, I really like nowadays it's so easy to travel. We know everything about the location before we ever get there. Everything is Google Map is telling you how many nanoseconds until the next train and how many people are sat on the train and everything. Like, you can go back 25, 30 years to go to another country and, just style on people in a tournament. That to me is one of the most impressive things you can do.
It was interesting because that was Chris Brennan's gym where it happened in California, and Genki was in the States for some reason, and he went and competed in basically it was like an in-house sort of local tournament. And
it was pretty small
pretty
scale.
low level, but he came in and he was just doing the craziest things. Like, he did a flying triangle over somebody's seated guard. That was the first time I'd ever seen that in my life. It was phenomenal. And
his movement was insane.
I'd done a seminar with Chris Brennan not long after that happened, and I'd seen the video, and me and a couple of other guys, we were talking to Chris about it, and Chris was like, I had no idea who he was. He just turned up, and then I'm refereeing the matches, and he's doing all this crazy stuff, and he was laughing and enjoying it while he was refereeing. He's just like, oh my God, this is crazy.
I'm going to definitely have to watch that after this again, because it was so good. I mean, one fun episode in the future might be talking about these kind of various obscure grappling promotions or events that happened at one time or another. Because do you remember there was a Japanese one, and there's a famous picture of Gomi. He's like cradling a dude's neck and his leg, and the knee is bent completely backwards, and he's just looking at the camera.
Exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
I think it's called combat wrestling.
Combat wrestling. It was. Yeah, they had a couple of events. It was like it was basically like a catch wrestling, submission wrestling.
Yeah, it was like a catch tournament.
Yeah,
but it was Rubina Sato and Genki and Gomi and all those guys. Yeah,
there was back then. Nobody else was doing leg locks. These guys were doing heel hooks. They were doing all kinds of things. There was a Hickson Gracie's Budo challenge that Shinya Aoki went and fought in, and there was that. You remember the one with Randy Couture and like Jacare X or something? Sub X or Pro Sub X or Sub X or something like that. Really that was Rico Ciparelli promoted that one, I think.
Right.
That was kind of wild, but that was crazy because Marcelo Garcia fought like Jake Shields, and you're right, Randy Couture fought Jacare. Yeah, that was in LA. Wow. Yeah. There have been a lot of like random events over the years, which are really fun. But yeah, that's I guess just going back to ADCC and those early ADCCs, like I said, that's how we got into it. I was watching some clips earlier and seeing the old school guys and just reminded of how far we've come. And I am genuinely excited to see what happens in ADCC in 2026 in Poland. I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be curious to see which of the ADCC champions and grapplers from previous editions might phase out, and what new talent might come up between now and then, and if there's going to be any great changes to sort of who's been winning the divisions. There's still a big question mark over whether Gordon will come back to compete. I personally would be very surprised if he does. I don't think he has anything to win or anything to gain by coming back to compete again.
from what I hear, he's barely training. So, no, he doesn't have much to prove. That's for sure. In terms of jiu-jitsu, yes, he is the fucking man for sure.
Yeah, and I don't think he. Who was the super fight meant to be against? The absolute Kynan. I also don't think that we'll see Gordon take on Kynan in that super fight.
Have they fought before? No.
Yes, once at No-Gi Pans a long time ago. I think it was 2018, and Gordon was able to get his back and choke him. But that was a very different Kynan then to the Kynan that has since won multiple ADCC titles, 4 ADCC gold medals, including the absolute division, double gold last time, which would put him in the position to face Gordon, who is the current super fight champion. So, but I honestly don't think we'll see that match happen. It's not that Gordon couldn't beat him, but Gordon has said in the past as well that he just would absolutely refuse to fight him for any money whatsoever, based on some perceived slight or something that has happened in the past. And
was it something to do with the training camps at Mo's place or something? Yeah,
and refusing to release the footage of the Modolfo camp. Yeah,
I did the logos for that, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, I'm glad that CGI didn't actually kill off ADCC, because it's a good part of the grappling calendar for sure. The trials and the final event. Yeah.
100%. ADCC has got so much history in jiu-jitsu and grappling, and it's got a special place in just the general jiu-jitsu scene. It's every 2 years, which definitely makes it special. I think the anticipation for every ADCC event is so high. And yes, I'm really looking forward to the next one. I think it's going to be special. We might see some different results this time around, especially if some of those Russians manage to get in.
Yeah, and they're well suited to the kind of weird rules. I mean, it might be a bit late in the day to start discussing them, but very unique rule set. Not often the most exciting, but at least they're consistent.
Yeah. ADCC rules very opaque. Not too many people know them too well. But hey, I think this is probably a good time to end today's podcast, because you need to start getting ready for a big show this weekend. You've got Polaris squads.
Yes. So I am slightly discombobulated. Yes, it is squads this weekend. Team South America against Team Asia and Oceania. Yeah.
That's awesome. We'll have to do a breakdown of that one on the next episode and talk about squads in general.
Yeah, it's been tricky to follow CGI, because not only did they end up having similar teams, but they did the whole team thing. But I think for that reason, the athletes are going to really they're going to kind of let loose, because there's slightly less pressure on them. Yeah, it's going to be very exciting.
There's quite a few guys in it from the last CGI. I'm thinking Charles Negromonte, Kent, Lucas Canard. So it's quite a few guys coming in with some momentum. So I love squads, and I always love watching those guys compete. So I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Sweet. It's going to be good.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's a good time to end it. That's episode 2 of Unknown Pressures. Make sure you follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you like to get your downloads. Give us a like, give us a follow. We'll see you next time.